Hi, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the concepts of corroboration, validation and scale. This is in response really to a couple of posts that have been made by people who seem to take offence that the measurements that I take aren't superbly accurate. And of course they're not superbly accurate. I'm building things out of builder's board and bits of string, and all I'm really doing is replicating what other people have done. And the reason I'm doing it, well, there's a few reasons actually. One is a lot of people may not be aware of this stuff as stuff that exists, so it's kind of good to get the message out there that there are alternatives, and these are what the alternatives are. The other reason is just to show you that science doesn't need expensive equipment in order to perform it. You can perform science with the most basic of tools. You can do these things yourselves really, really easily with minimum equipment and minimum effort to give things a go. And that's the whole point, to drive things into giving it a go. Now, a lot of this stuff has a ton of research behind it. It's not just me saying it, hey, look at this, isn't that marvellous, I invented it. I didn't invent it. I just copied somebody else. And most of the stuff has an absolute mountain of research on it. You don't need to do much more than type in wind belt and read Wikipedia's entry on it to find out what the performance of a wind belt will be. It's not that challenging. It tells you what the efficiency is in the top of the page of Wikipedia, should you have bothered to read it. If something interests you, and this is what I kind of expect of people, if something's interests you, I would expect you to read. I'd expect you to think, oh, that looked kind of interesting, I wonder what was around that, and have a bit of a read. You don't need to go to Google Scholar, just have a general read, and you'll get, most of the questions that I'm asked are just freely available on the internet. Now, I do appreciate that some people really want things handed to them on a plate, but unfortunately that's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to encourage you to read and research and think for yourself, and that's exactly what it's all about. It's about really inspiring a bit of interest, asking you to ask yourself some questions that you should try and find the answer to. You shouldn't be banging an email message off to me saying, what about this? Your first recourse should be to look on the net and do the research yourself and have a bit of a read and find the answers to some of these questions, which are just freely available if you put in 5 minutes worth of effort. And that's what it's about. It's trying to get you to do that. Now, the readings are ad hoc. Yes, I stick them on a multimeter and say, hey, look at this, because it is interesting to see some result out of it. If that result looks interesting to you, I would thoroughly expect you to be looking further into it and not taking my word for it. I'm not telling you anything apart from, isn't this interesting? I don't know the answers half of the time. Half of the time I'm asking a question, I have to look it up. So I do. I look it up and I answer from what I've just read. And then sometimes I'm doing that and I think, why am I doing this? Why don't we just cut out the middleman? Why am I looking it up for you and giving you the answer I've just read in Wikipedia when you could just do exactly the same thing yourself? So it's meant to encourage you just to find something interesting. And if you find it interesting, then to have a read around it. Because this stuff, like the wind belt generator, which is the one we've just been doing, obviously has a ton of work done on it. It's Sean Friend that invented it. It was invented in 2004. There's a Wikipedia entry to it. There are a half a dozen variants around there. There's not that much on the YouTube, actually. I couldn't find a lot of things. I could only find a few things. So there's not that much knowledge that it actually exists, and that's why I did the video on it, because I thought it was really interesting. Now, there are things that I do that are developments of that, so I have looked a bit more at the wind belt and done some development stuff that does incorporate my ideas on it. Now, when it incorporates my ideas on it, then I go into an awful lot more detail about it, and I will be much more careful about the readings. And I find those videos actually to be really boring, and that's fine, because they're meant for tech head people who are really into it. They're not meant for general viewing to inspire. Those ones actually can last a very long time, and normally my videos get quite a lot of views, but those particular ones get hardly any. And it doesn't surprise me in the least, because they're just not interesting to anybody who doesn't want that tech head information. So you have to split the videos up in your own mind into whether it's a technical video that you're looking at that information, or a general video where the video is meant to inspire. If it's a general video, then you're not going to get much of that sort of tech head stuff, because it's just a turn off to people, and they won't be inspired and they won't even watch it, so there's no point in doing it, because it won't get seen. I do those kind of videos for tech heads in tech head style videos. You usually pick those out really easily, because they'll be the one with 200 views. The other stuff will have 200,000 views. So it's easy to pick out the tech head stuff. Now, I've been doing this for some years, as most people know, or a lot of people know. And so I have a considerable amount of experience in what will and won't get watched, and really how to present a video. Now, I don't do much in the way of close-ups. I do close-ups. I do close-ups when I feel that they're important. When there's some little trick that you may find helpful to building something, I'll do a close-up of it. If it's something that you're a bit worried about not having seen before, and is it this that you should be doing, I'll do a close-up of it. But if it's just a general piece of construction where you can work out how to build it yourself from seeing the overview, I'll just do the overview and point out a few things. There's no point to a close-up. I've watched a lot of build videos, and to be honest, when I see a video of somebody sawing a bit of wood in half, I skip forward because I know how to saw a bit of wood in half. Most people know how to saw a bit of wood in half. I don't need to see you sawing a bit of wood in half. I need to move along and get the information I need. I don't need to spend time repeating stuff that everybody basically knows. And so I don't do that. I don't do something where I say, hey, take this bit of board and saw it in half like this. I say, and here's the bit of board that has been sawed in half. So there's no point in doing a close-up of that, and so I don't do close-ups of that. I do close-ups of things that I consider to be important, and there aren't that many things that are really important. You can work out most of it yourself just by looking at the thing. If I show you a bit of board that long, you know I've taken a bit of board that long and made it that long with a saw. Why would I show you? And so I don't. And so close-ups are something that I use judiciously. I don't use them all the time. Obviously, meter readings are one of those things that it would be handy to have a better clearer view of sometimes. And sometimes, particularly actually in battery videos, because I'm obviously a battery chemist, I'll do exactly that, and most of the screen is filled with the meter readings. But you wouldn't believe the way people are. When I do that, what I get is the complaint that I'm not showing everything and therefore there must be a hidden wire. I mean, it's unbelievable. You really have to think about so much when you do a video, and it doesn't matter what you do, you'll upset somebody. So all videos are a balance. You can't possibly show everything, or every video would be hours long and none of it would get watched. You've got to balance everything out. And yet, when you're viewing that, if you're thinking that it should have been a close-up, have a think about why it wasn't. Not, give me a close-up, but he didn't give me a close-up then, why, I wonder? And there'll be a reason why. It won't be just random. It'll be something where I thought it wasn't necessary to have a close-up, or something where another bit of information was missing, so that you'll get that cheat. So particularly on the wind video, the one that I just did actually, not this one, the one on the members channel, where I've done some improvements and I'm trying to demonstrate those improvements. What I tried to do is give a view of the piece of equipment and the meter at the same time, so that I don't get the inevitable, there's a hidden wire. So I try to do that, where you can see everything all at once, rather than having a particular close-up. And it does mean that you might have to squint at the meter a little bit. But some of the stuff where you don't get a particularly good view of the meter is because it really just doesn't matter. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, I'm just trying to show you something is interesting. There's a ton of people who've done the research, there's an awful lot of answers to the questions of how much does it actually produce that you can read up on yourself. So really the meter is just demonstrating that roughly something is happening, and so it doesn't matter what that meter reading is, to be honest, it's almost inconsequential. Equally, if you're asking what the power output of it is because you want to consider making one of scale, it just really, it's I don't know how to politely put this, but it's a question that has no relevance whatsoever. If I put something together with a bit of builder's board and a HD drive and show a measurement on it, you can 100% guarantee you will not replicate that. You might get worse, you might get better, you certainly won't get the same. You won't get the same because there are so many variables involved in what you build on a prototype, a model, desktop basis, to what somebody else will actually build, that the meter reading actually is completely misleading and unimportant. All it tells you is something is happening. Now, scale has a huge impact on these things. I got another post from a guy who said, oh, that's just microwatts, what's the point of that? And you think, wow, really? Wow. Have you never seen the first electric motor? The first electric motor was a piece of wire in a mercury disc that Faraday spun round and round and round in the Royal Society of Chemists. It was a trivial thing. You would never imagine it would make the motors that we have today, because it was just ludicrously trivial, that apparently would do no work whatsoever. And lots of these things are models where scale would have a huge impact. Now, we've done things like take a child's penny wind turbine. The thing's on a stick and you blow it and it spins around. And it produced a few microwatts of power. That is just a demonstration. We all know that if I take a motor and I stick a propeller on it and blow that propeller, it will generate. If I do that, it's going to generate a trivial amount of power. And yet that is exactly the concept of wind turbines. If I want to generate a massive amount of power, I need to build a tower 115 meters high and put a few 100 kilograms of turbine on the top. Then I'll generate some megawatts. Of course I will. But I'm not going to do that. I can't afford to do that. I don't need to do that. Other people are doing that. That motor with a propeller on it is just a concept. The scale will be massively different. You can't judge the output of a scale-up version from a model purely in terms of whether that model is producing microwatts or milliwatts. It just doesn't make any sense to do that. What you can do is you can do exactly what I'm trying to show you is important. What you can do is say, that's interesting, I must look further. Now, looking further, what it really involves you in is reading. People tell me, I don't have a lab, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, and yet they are sitting on the computer watching YouTube videos. So clearly they have the time because they're watching videos. Clearly have the resources because they're already on a computer. Your first step, all that you need to do is read. It's as simple as that. Type in some search terms and spend some time reading. If you spend some time reading, it'll develop your ideas. You'll see what this stuff is about. You'll get far more knowledge on it than I ever would. You'll develop ideas, really, that will be sensible ideas. You'll understand what the problems are, where the efficiency improvements can be made, how you could do a prototype that will be much, much better than the piece of tut I made. Because the piece of tut I made is made out of plastic board, just to show that something is interesting. If you want to make a better model and have an idea of how much power it could generate, then your first step, have a read. Your second step, if you feel like it, is to build a model. If you never take that second step, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way some things are, and that does involve money and equipment. I'm trying to show it doesn't involve much money and equipment, but it does involve money and equipment. If you don't have much money and you're going to commit to doing something, you really should have read first anyway. You certainly should not be using YouTube as the sole source of your knowledge on how things work, because YouTube is full of rubbish. I mean, it's awesome in some respects. It is truly, truly awesome what you can find on YouTube. But when you look on YouTube, you don't only find the gems, you find the absolute tut as well. And you have to wade through all that tut to find the interesting stuff. So YouTube is a mixed bag of things. It's a bag of some stuff that is really, really good. It's a bag of some stuff that is really, really rubbish. And it's a bag of some stuff that is total misinformation. And you have to decide which bits are correct and informative and which bits are disinformation and of no use to you. Only you can decide that. And you decide that, really, when something strikes you as interesting, is there research behind it? And you'll only ever find that out if you read. If you're looking at something like the wind belt, for instance, and it strikes you as interesting and you want to know whether it's real or not, you don't ask the person who made the video, is that real? Because the answer you'll get is yes, because they made the video. You have a look generally around at what wind belts are all about, what efficiency they've been reported, what problems they've got, how they stack up against the competition. That will inform you about whether that information is real or not. Watching a video won't inform you about the reality of the information. Watching the video and then backing it up by doing your own reading and finding research behind it that will support what's being said, that's how you verify something. You don't verify something by squinting at somebody's meter reading. That won't help you verify jack. You verify something by having a look at the research that went behind it. So we talked now about corroborating, validating and verifying, and scale. And I wanted to talk about those three things because there's been a number of comments about those things, and what I wanted to be able to do is say, hey, watch this video. So I hope it was of interest to you. I hope more people watch it that need to watch it, and thank you very much for watching.